The Cage of Balance. Written by Dean Jordanoff. Narrated by Dougal McGrath, and a special appearance by Lily. A night call. A special one that led me here. The moon spilled silver over the dead grass, lighting up the field like a crime scene. Shadows slid across the ground. Quiet, like ghosts with unfinished business. It was late, too late, but I couldn't sleep. Something was waiting out there in the fog, and it wasn't good. I knew the smart move was to turn back, but Honor's a cruel mistress, and I was already in too deep. I pulled the handle, pushed the door, and stepped out of the old police car. It sat half on the road, half on the grass, metal ticking in the cool air. Shutting the door, I scanned the plain ahead. No one to judge me, yet the night felt like it was watching. The wind picked up, cold, sharp, like a whisper with a knife edge. It carried the scent of burnt wood and wet iron. Trouble, the kind that lingers in your coat and keeps your hand near the holster, even when you're off duty. I lit a cigarette. The flame shook in the breeze, but it caught. I pulled deep and let the smoke settle in my lungs, like an old friend I didn't trust anymore. That's when I heard it. A creak, soft and measured, like someone testing floorboards that shouldn't be there. Out here in the middle of a field. Yeah, that was no stray animal. I stepped forward. My boots crunched the frostbitten grass. The revolver in my coat weighed heavy, but comforting, like regret you've learned to live with. Then I saw him. Leaning against a dead tree, one leg crossed over the other, like he owned the damn world. Long coat, wide-brimmed hat, and a silver badge glinting in the moonlight, but not a sheriff's badge. Older, forgotten. He didn't move, didn't blink, just waited. I knew that look. I'd worn it myself. I didn't speak, neither did he. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire, one word, and it'd snap. I took a step closer. He didn't flinch, just kept watching, like he already knew how this would end. Maybe he did. "You're late," he finally said, voice low and rough, like gravel soaked in whiskey. I flicked ash off the cigarette. Didn't know we were on a schedule. You always were slow to catch up, even back then. Back then. The words hit harder than they should have. I'd buried that part of me years ago, deep, dark, where even memory feared to tread. But here it was again, dragging its fingernails across my spine. He pushed off the tree and walked closer. The way he moved, smooth. Like he'd never left the game. His eyes caught the moonlight, pale grey, unreadable. "What's this about?" I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. "There's a name resurfacing," he said. "One you should have put 6 feet under, same time you vanished." My jaw tightened. "Say it." He leaned in, breath cold as the wind. "Jeren Voss." The cigarette fell from my fingers. Jeren Voss was supposed to be dead. I made sure of it. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. But his face was stone. No smirk, no glint of irony in his eyes, just that name hanging between us like a curse scratched into wood. "Impossible," I muttered. I watched the house burn, stayed till the roof caved in. No one walks away from that. He nodded once, slow. "No one does." My stomach turned. He reached into his coat and pulled something out, a glass vial, thick with a dark, swirling liquid that swirled like smoke trapped under oil. He tossed it at me. I caught it on instinct. "What the hell is this?" I asked. "Blood," he said, "but not his." The liquid inside shimmered. For a second, it wasn't just liquid. Something moved. Eyes, maybe, or the suggestion of them. I looked away too fast to be sure, but it felt like whatever was inside had looked back. I capped it and shoved it in my coat like I could forget it that easy. He continued, Gerin didn't die. Something dragged him out, and now it wears his face. You saw it? Once. That was enough. He looked off into the trees, jaw set hard. It doesn't cast a shadow. It speaks like him, moves like him, remembers everything. But it's not him, and it wants something. Bad. He paused, face tightening. I barely made it out after, but I wounded it. He nodded toward the vial in my pocket. That's not just any sample. I made it bleed. My own blood turned to ice. Why come to me? I asked. He turned back, and this time I saw something in his expression I never expected. Fear. Because it remembers you, he said, then went still. Everything went still. Why you stopped the story? A creaky voice asked. I trailed off. I? What is I? It was someone I had been. In the floating memory, the two men looked like shadows, featureless and fading. Let us put faces to the shadows, whatever remained of me whispered. Jonas Vale was a man built from the leftover parts of hard years and harder choices. Mid-40s, face weathered like old leather left out in the sun, with stubble that was more a permanent fixture than a style. His dark hair, streaked with silver, was usually slicked back when he cared to try. His eyes, cracked glass blue, were detached, yet piercing, an unsettling combination that seemed to look clean through a man. He wore his charcoal overcoat like armor, and the revolver under his arm weighed like penance. There was a scar just beneath his jaw, half hidden by a worn red scarf, a memory he never talked about. Cassian Rourke walked beside him, tall and lean, a silver-haired shadow. His eyes were the color of ash, narrow pupils catching just a little too much. A long duster hung from his frame, sable-brown and ancient, while strange glyphs coiled faintly around his fingers. The silver ring on his left hand pulsed like a faint, distant star. Once Jonas trusted him. Once. 10 years ago, Black Hollow. Rain fell like nails on the roof of the old Voss estate. 3 stories of rotting wood and arrogance perched on the edge of a limestone ravine. The wind howled through broken shutters. Somewhere below, the river gnawed at the cliffs like it wanted to bring the whole place down. Jonas Vale stood in the study, coat dripping, revolver warm in his grip. Across the room, Gerin Voss was smiling. He looked nothing like the man he'd once been, a respected scholar, an occult historian with more charm than sense. Now he was gaunt, eyes sunken and too bright, like something inside him was watching through the wrong end of a telescope. His fingers trembled not with fear, but anticipation. "Do you know what they promised me, Jonas?" Gerin asked, voice soft, like a lover's whisper. "Do you remember what we read in the Brimlight Codex?" Jonas didn't answer. He'd burned that book, and still he heard the pages turning in his dreams. Gerin laughed, hollow, jagged. "They live under the page," he said, stepping closer to the chalk-drawn circle that pulsed with a light that had no source. "They showed me how to reshape the cage. Death isn't the end, it's a threshold." He opened his arms. Jonas pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, sharp and final. Gerin staggered, looked surprised, then laughed again, blood pouring from his mouth like ink. He stumbled back into the circle. The runes ignited. The floor split like dry earth. Something screamed, not Gerin, something. Flames roared up the walls as Jonas ran, not daring to look back. He didn't stop until the house collapsed in on itself, a crater of fire swallowing everything. Back in the present, Jonas lit another cigarette with shaking fingers. Cassian watched him in silence. "You think I made a mistake?" Jonas muttered. Cassian shook his head. "I think you shot a man possessed by something that wanted out, and now it's wearing his memory like skin." Jonas exhaled smoke into the night. "Then we better find it," he said, "before it remembers how to open the cage again." The wind shifted. One moment they were alone in the empty field, brittle grass whispering under their boots. The next, crack, pressure bloomed behind their eyes, like a sound too low to hear, yet strong enough to twist the world around them. Cassian staggered, fighting for balance. Jonas froze, breath caught mid-draw. Then, flash. The study. Again, but not his memory of it. Jonas stood across from Geren just like before, but this time Geren wasn't laughing. He was weeping, blood leaking from his eyes like tears. And Jonas wasn't holding the gun, Cassian was. Standing behind Geren, calm, unreadable, a thin smile tugging at the corner of his mouth as he pressed a blade to Geren's throat. Jonas reached for his revolver, but his hands wouldn't move. The room began to melt, floorboards liquefied, the walls breathing like lungs. Runes scrawled themselves across Jonas's skin. He screamed, and then gone. Cassian gasped, pulling air like a man surfacing from a nightmare. He'd seen it too, but different. In his vision, it was Jonas standing in the circle, chanting in a tongue Cassian didn't recognize, but the voice was unmistakably his. Geren was nailed to the wall, crucified upside down, his ribs carved open like a book. Flames danced on every surface, but the room was cold, impossibly cold. Cassian tried to stop Jonas in the vision, tried to speak, but his mouth filled with ash. When he blinked, the room was swarmed with shadowy silhouettes, dozens of them watching, applauding. Then silence. Then black. They both stood there, breathing hard, eyes wide. Jonas spoke first, hoarse. "That wasn't mine." Cassian nodded slowly. "Nor mine." He looked at Jonas, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's showing us something, but it's not the past." "No," Jonas said. "It's a performance. A lie told close enough to truth. It makes you question your own hands." Cassian's eyes scanned the dark tree line. "It's in our heads, maybe even nearby." Jonas dropped the cigarette. "It wants us to doubt, wants us fractured. That way, when it comes, we won't know what side of the gun we're on." Cassian almost smiled. "Then we don't give it the pleasure." But in Jonas's pocket, the vial of swirling blood pulsed once, just once, as if it heard them, and approved. The wind had gone still, too still. No sound but the crunch of their boots as Jonas and Cassian walked through the tree-thick hollow, senses stretched thin as wire. "Pass me the vial," Cassian whispered, and Jonas did. The air was dense, sticky with the scent of mud and old leaves. Fog clung to the ground like a living thing, coiling around their legs. Cassian held the vial of blood in one hand, muttering an incantation under his breath, words not meant for daylight. The glass shimmered in response, faint pulses guiding them forward. Then the fog shifted, parted, and there she stood, slender, pale, a wraith made of sorrow and fading perfume. Her black hair hung soaked and tangled, her dress clinging to her like seaweed. Eliza. Jonas froze. His mouth opened, then closed again. No. Was that another trick? Cassian blinked hard, once, twice, but she didn't vanish. "Eliza, gods no, you were in Varel. Across the sea, what the hell?" She didn't speak. Not at first. Just wept, quiet and broken. Tears ran down her face, but didn't hit the ground. They vanished mid-air. Then she looked up.
"I waited,"
she said. Her voice was cold glass, cracked and full of rain.
"I sent letters. I prayed, but you didn't come."
Jonas stepped forward, hands trembling. "We thought you were safe.
You didn't care.
Her eyes snapped to his.
You forgot me, both of you.
Cassian's jaw clenched. No, that's not true. We searched the ports when the letters stopped.
I died screaming your names.
Jonas flinched. His heart punched the inside of his ribs. Then she stepped closer, closer than any ghost should.
You remember the bridge?
She asked suddenly, softly.
The one under the cliffside vineyard, where I carved our initials into the stone and told you both to meet me if we ever lost our ways. You never came.
Jonas's face drained of colour. It was really her, whatever remained of her. Cassian muttered, "No one else knew about that." She smiled, and the sadness twisted into something other.
There's a place on the other side.
She whispered.
A special one, made just for the two of you.
Her hands twitched. Then she screamed, a sound not made for ears, and hurled herself forward, mouth open, arms outstretched. Jonas stumbled back. Cassian raised his hand, glyphs already burning. But nothing. She vanished an inch before touching them, like fog torn apart by sudden wind. Gone. Silence fell again, but it was different now, heavier. Jonas stared at the empty space where she'd stood. "She's dead," he said quietly. "She's dead, and it used her, twisted her." Cassian nodded, voice like flint. "But she gave us a clue. The bridge." Jonas's fist clenched tight. "Then let's go rip the truth out of whatever's wearing her skin." Cassian met his sharp blue gaze for a moment, then murmured, "Here," as he handed the vial back. Without another word, they turned toward the road, each lost in his own thoughts. An hour later, Jonas's old car creaked to a stop near the edge of the cliffs, its engine ticking as it cooled in the night air. The two men stepped out in silence. The cliffs loomed above them like the spine of some ancient buried beast. Below, the sea snarled against the rocks. The moon carved pale streaks across the stone, and there, just where the old path curved down the slope, stood the bridge. Jonas saw it first. Same arched stone, same moss-covered railing. A place carved in his memory like a wound that never quite closed. He approached, boots crunching gravel, eyes locking on the stone pillar where Eliza had once knelt, laughing, carving her mark with a pocket knife and wine on her breath. But this time, it wasn't E plus J. It wasn't her initials. It was two words, clean and ancient, perfectly etched. The end, like it had always been there, as if the memory of Eliza and that summer afternoon was nothing but a story someone else had told him. Jonas's breath caught. "No." Cassian stepped beside him, eyes wide. They weren't changed. They were never different. The cliff wind twisted around them. Then laughter, low, liquid, like ink being poured into a well. "Show yourself now!" Jonas snapped. His voice cracked through the air like a gunshot. Nothing. Then Cassian went rigid. "Oh my," he said faintly. "He's about to show." He jerked violently, eyes bulging as an invisible hand slipped beneath his skin and gripped something vital. A scream tore from him as the glyphs on his arms ignited, pure white fire racing along his veins. He collapsed, gasping, a smear of blood trailing from his nose. Jonas dropped to his side. Cassian groaned. "I don't think I'll survive another one, Jones." Jonas looked down at him, his only friend, his last tether to the man he once was. His face twisted, not in grief, in fury. He reached into his coat, pulled out the vial. The black blood inside was boiling, alive, as if it knew. "Jonas," Cassian whispered, horror dawning. Jonas stared at the vial, then at the cliffs, then back at the words on the stone. He removed the cap. Cassian reached weakly, his voice breaking. "Jonas, what are you doing?" Jonas didn't look back. He drank. 1 gulp, 2. The last drop slid down his throat like fire from a broken world. The glass shattered in his hand. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Jonas's body convulsed, spine arching, mouth open in a silent scream as the thing inside the blood ripped through him, mapping every nerve, every memory, every lie. His shadow twisted on the ground like it belonged to something else entirely. Cassian, still gasping, crawled backward, dragging himself with bloodied fingers. Jonas stood, still Jonas, but something more or less. His eyes were black from edge to edge, not void, depth. He looked down at Cassian and smiled. Not cruelly, not kindly, just knowingly. "The end," he whispered, voice layered with something else. Older, colder. Not yet. He turned toward the fog. Something was waiting in it, and now Jonas Vale was ready to meet it. The fog thickened like smoke around a pyre. It churned and parted. A figure emerged, step by step, slow and deliberate, no sound, just presence. Jonas raised his head, heart thundering in his ears. His breath caught. Gerin Voss, striding toward him, same coat, same haunted eyes. Alive. No, not right. He blinked. Eliza. Same hair, same eyes brimming with salt water and secrets. Her hand lifted, as if to reach him. He blinked again. Both. Neither. His vision fractured. His mind screamed for him to stop blinking, but it was instinct, human, helpless. It, whatever wore her, smiled. A smile too wide, cracking her face like broken porcelain. Lips peeled back, revealing rows of jagged, glassy teeth, more than a mouth should hold. The voice that slithered from her throat was mockery given form. "Voss opened the cage," it rasped. "He believed the promises, fool, and I escaped. Now he is in my place. It always has to be someone in, always." Jonas stared, fists clenched, knuckles white. "Why?" he asked, voice cracking. "Why'd you have to kill her?" The thing tilted her head. "She was already dead," it said matter-of-factly. "I saw it in her mind like a film on repeat. She died the moment you ditched her for that blonde broad, remember? What was her name? Kathy? Kara?" Its laughter was vile, wet. It echoed around the rocks like bile swirling in a drain. Jonas's chest caved in. His breath came sharp, jagged. "No," he muttered. "Yes, Jonas," the thing hissed gleefully. "She begged to go into the cage. She wanted it. She wanted to forget, all because of you." Jonas dropped to his knees. Tears carved down his face, unashamed. The creature leaned closer. Eliza's eyes stared out, but they were wrong, empty, lit with gleeful rot. "You made her forget how to hope." Jonas shook, head bowed. The grief broke open like a dam. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Jonas asked, voice shaking, almost breaking. His breath caught on the edge of a sob. The creature leaned in, its grin stretching too wide. "She hated you, Jonas. Not just pain, not just sorrow. Deep inside, she wanted you to feel every breath like a punishment. Even she didn't fully realize it. Because her hatred was just the other side of her love." The thing's grin twitched, widening. "Voss resented you too. He hated how you always questioned him, always needed to understand. He smiled to your face, but in his soul, He cursed you." It leaned even closer, voice dripping like acid. "That's what I feed on, Jonas. Not their flesh, their regrets, their broken hidden truths. And when I consume you—" It giggled, sharp and wet. "I'll find the people you loathe, the ones you couldn't forgive. I'll whisper their names in the dark. That's my feast. That's how I grow." "Eliza." Jonas heaved, shoulders caving inward. Tears dropped on his trembling hands. I didn't know," he whispered, voice breaking under the weight. His fingers clawed at the earth like a drowning man, reaching not just for air, but for meaning, something solid inside or out. He gasped, shuddering, lost in his own ruin. Then, deep in his torn soul, he touched something dark but stable, like a pillar in the storm, not clean, not kind, but real. And he grasped it. A flicker. Behind the agony, something stirred. The black blood in Jonas's veins surged, burned, and his eyes, still wet, started to darken once more, not with despair, but with clarity. The creature didn't notice yet. It was too busy savouring the cruelty, circling him like a vulture with a lover's face. "I wore her skin so well," it purred. "She was always so full of pain. I barely had to fake it." But Jonas rose, slow, controlled. His head lifted, his voice came low. "You shouldn't have used her." The smile faltered. Something else looked out from Jonas Vale's face now. The black blood had finished its work. But Jonas was still there, anchored, not consumed, wielding it. "You think you know pain?" he said. "Let me show you what you made." The spectre let out a screech that made the stones cry and the trees recoil. It launched itself forward in a blur of black tendrils and screeching air. But Jonas Vale was no longer just a man. He had drunk from the black blood. He had seen. And though this creature could not die, it could now be hurt. The first strike landed, a slash across his chest, deep, vicious. Blood sprayed dark and steaming. He staggered, but the pain only focused him. In the same motion, his hand slipped under his coat, drawing his revolver. Tendrils of black energy, born from the foreign blood inside him, slithered down his arm and into the chamber. The metal of the bullets screamed as they changed, warped by shadow, sharpened by will. He spun. Bang! A black streak cracked through the air. The bullet struck true. The spectre reeled, hissing, and in an instant its form shattered into 5 flickering figures. Eliza, Gerin, Cassian himself, Jonas's father, even his younger self as a boy. Then they melted together into a single shadow, tall and lean with golden eyes, burning like twin suns in tar. It lashed out. Tendrils whipped toward the revolver. Jonas barely raised his arm in time, but his hand was knocked away as the thing tackled him to the earth. They rolled, man and monstrosity, struggling in the mud and broken light. The spectre wrapped around him like smoke, like worms, like flesh. It was in his mouth, his ears, trying to crawl inside him and tear him apart from the inside out. Jonas held the gun still, but couldn't raise it. He couldn't breathe, could barely think. Then, light. A blast of white glyph energy struck the spectre from the side. It howled in surprise, unraveling slightly. Cassian, limping, one arm bloody, the glyphs on his hand flaring like firebrands, had arrived. "Let go of him!" Cassian roared, light pulsing again. The spectre shrieked and shot a tendril straight at him, sending him rolling back hard, but it was enough. Jonas wrestled his arm free. Bang! 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 Bang, bang, all 5 bullets. Each one struck like a curse forged in steel. The entity screamed, its form shuddering, vapour and hate, smoke and memory burning in the night air. And then the black blood moved. A second consciousness behind Jonas, his dark helper. It took his hand and raised it high. Fingers twisted unnaturally, forming a shape, a glyph older than breath. A circle appeared, suspended in space, spinning, glimmering like silver fire trapped in ice. The cage was here. It descended in silence, gridwork gleaming with runes and impossible geometry. It spun without touching the ground. Time itself slowed around it. The spectre stopped moving. It knew. "Don't want to go back, do you?" Jonas growled, voice rough with hate and sorrow. "Too bad." The helper twisted Jonas's wrist again. The cage opened. A vacuum of light and sound tore the fog away. Air was pulled in, leaves, gravel, everything bending toward the cage's yawning mouth, and within its spinning core, two glowing souls flickered. Eliza, Gerin, alive, drawn out from the belly of the beast. Two out, two in. Balance. Jonas understood. He always understood. He reached out with his free hand. Black tendrils surged from his fingers, wrapping around the spectre, locking it down like shackles forged in nightmare. "No more running," he said. "Now you get to spend eternity with me, slimy bastard." The spectre fought, screamed. It thrashed and tore and begged in all the voices it had ever stolen. Jonas didn't flinch. He stepped inside the cage. Behind him, Cassian screamed, "Jonas, no, there's no coming back." Jonas didn't answer. He knew. But this was the only way. The price. The balance. With a final wrench, he pulled the spectre in beside him. It shrieked once more, high, awful. And then the cage sealed shut, metal screaming as it twisted into place. Then quietly, impossibly, it vanished. The silver ring melted into the night like ice beneath fire. And there, curled naked on the cold earth, were Eliza and Gerin, shivering, alive. Cassian stumbled forward, dropping to his knees beside them. He touched their shoulders, shaking, crying, half laughing in disbelief. But his eyes searched the night, and Jonas Vale was gone.